Hello, my friends. Welcome to Lindy's Magpie Reads. If you're new here, special welcome to you. I'm Lindy. I read a lot, pretty much a book a day. And so when it comes to narrowing down my best books of the year, there's a lot to go through. So what I decided to do was just focus on the Canadian titles that I read. I read 115 Canadian books in 2025, and I've chosen about 20 or so. I haven't actually counted them. I think there's that many. And I'm going to talk about them in no particular order except my favorite book. I'm saving that for the very last. Now, before I get to the actual titles, some of you might know that I collect Tim Hortons references in literature, and I put those on my blog. There's pretty much nothing there except this for the past few years. And this year there were 15 different books that had Tim Hortons references. One of those was actually authored by an American. I'm going to include a link in the show notes. So if you just want to get a feel for the breadth of variety in Canadian writing and one American book, I suggest that you have a look at these excerpts, and maybe some of them will make you want to read those books too. Now, one of the things that I did last year, I think this was the second or third year that Jolene has done a Reading Across Canada challenge. So you can find it on Storygraph. I'll include a link below for that. And she had 25 different categories. There was only one category that I did not have a book that suited, and that was read a book that was published 25 years before you were born. And let me tell you, the pickings in Canadian literature in 1935 were extremely slim. So did not get that one done. Jolene's channel is Bookworm Adventure Girl, and she and I in 2024 did a joint project together with a whole bunch of you, asking for your best Canadian books, and we compiled it all and ended up with the 67 best Canadian books of the 21st century. And there's a video, and I will link it below. So one of the challenges in 2025 that Jolene had included was to read a book from that 67 best books list. And I had already read most of them. I think there were only 5 I hadn't read yet. So I did pick up one of them, and I'm so glad. Excellent, excellent book. Small Game Hunting at the Local Coward Gun Club by Megan Gail Coles. And I listened to the audiobook. It is available in Hoopla, so check that out if you have access to Hoopla through your library. The edition that I listened to was actually read by the author. Special treat, because this book is set in Newfoundland, and there is a lot of the Newfoundland accent and dialect in the book. So hearing it is a special pleasure. And in the book, narrative voice is also something that really attracted me. This is a gripping story. There are dark deeds, there's misogyny, racism, addiction, class disparity, and this really fascinating portrayal of Newfoundland society So now I have read 63 out of the 67 best Canadian books of the 21st century. These are the 4 that remain. The Stone Carvers by Jane Urquhart, The Birth House by Amy Mackay, Celia's Song by Lee Merico, and Medicine Walk by Richard Wagamese. So if any of you are interested in buddy reading with me, one or some of these titles, please send me a message in the comment field in this video and maybe we can work something out. One of the other challenges in the Reading Across Canada was to read a book with 25 letters in the title. And so I read this standalone short story, Winter or a Town Near Palgrave, and it's by Alexis. This story is included in one of his collections. I think it's his most recent book called Other Worlds. It's an unsettling story. This is typical of Alexis's work. It's set in a sort of off-kilter small town Ontario. And I do have a longer short story collection on my list, best books. That is The Cree Word for Love, Sâkihitowin, and the writing is by Tracey Lindberg, who is Cree and Métis, and the art is by George Littlechild, who is Cree. And his collage art is so bright and beautiful. Mixed media, I guess, is what his art is called. Now, these short stories are loosely interconnected, so you could actually call this a novel. There's a kind of dark sense of humor in it. This story is The Summer of My Serial Killer, or I Kissed a Pretendian and I Liked It. It features all different kinds of love, and apparently there isn't a specific word for love in the Cree language, which is talked about in here. And it's also about the interconnectedness between humans and non-humans. And it's a book that is with the intellectual wit and literary chops to satisfy somebody who's looking for literary fiction. Oh, and Tracey Lindberg, her book Birdie did appear on the 67 best Canadian books of the 21st century, by the way. Something that really attracts me in the novels that I read is the way a story is told. So that's one of the many aspects that I loved about the Cree Word for Love. And that is also what I loved about We the Kindling. It's by Otoniya, Okot Bitek, who was born to Ugandan parents in Kenya, and she has lived in Canada now for over 3 decades. This novel is told in the voices of 3 different women who were captured by the Lord's Resistance Army in northern Uganda when they were children or teens and survived. Then they returned home after many years, only to be rejected. They were changed. They had children or had had children who died. Many things happened to them. There are also chapters that are in the third person plural, in the we. Even though these are traumatic experiences that are in the novel. The author treats these women with such love and respect. There's something healing about reading it. I don't know if you know what I mean, but yeah, I highly recommend We the Kindling. This next book, Endling by Reva, I listened to the audio. It's got 3 different narrators, including the author. Reva was born in Ukraine and grew up in Canada, and this novel is set in Ukraine. But right at the beginning of the audiobook, there's a note from the author. She says, at a certain point in the audiobook, it may feel like the story has ended. You'll know what I mean when you get there. I encourage you to keep listening. So this book is a blend of fiction and nonfiction. It's very meta at certain points. It is about a Ukrainian snail researcher researching endangered snails, and a couple of sisters who are looking for their mother, who's an activist. There are romance tours that used to happen in Ukraine, I guess before the war, where bachelors would come there looking for a bride, and these 2 sisters are making their money that way, and so is the science researcher. So that's how she's getting her funding for her project. But the author says that when she was writing this novel, she was partway through, and then the war broke out, and so everything changed for her, and she started to think, like, what good is fiction when there's with this kind of thing happening in the world? I love this book so much. It's fantastic. And still with the theme of innovative writing, this next book, The Book of Records by Madeleine Thien. Normally I read library books, but I could not wait for a library copy for this. I bought a copy as soon as it came out. Not sorry, because it's a book that I really had to take my time with. Madeleine Thien is the author of other works of fiction, including Do Not Say We Have Nothing. And this book actually was on Barack Obama's recommended reading list. I'll include a link to that down below. This book is a puzzle. It's set in a place that is outside of time. It's called the sea. It's hard to really get a grasp of what this place is even like. Migrants are coming and going all the time, but the 2 central characters are a father and his daughter, and they are staying there for a more extended period. And the daughter has got 3 books. They are biographies, and the 3 people in these 3 biographies, their stories are kind of woven through this as well. A very philosophical novel with a meditative pace. The emotions are joy mixed up with sorrow. It shows how it is totally possible to be in despair and yet also know joy. This book does require mental focus. I needed to read it first thing in the morning when I'm sharpest. It's grappling with the big questions, and I found it so very rewarding. And I look forward to rereading it, seeing if the same passages are the ones that catch my interest. the next time that I read. Oh, her writing is so lovely, just absolutely gorgeous. And she's another author with absolute tenderness for her characters and showing how people look out for each other, including strangers. Yeah. So good. I keep wanting to say so good, but that's why these are the best of 2025. So from the Book of Records to Book of Lives, I listened to Margaret Atwood's memoir in audio, and I talked about it quite a bit, I think, in Do You Read Canadian? It was quite recent, so I will link the video down below. There were so many memoirs that I loved in 2025. I read 22 Canadian memoirs, and my favorite is Miriam Toews' A Truce That Is Not Peace. I copied out into my commonplace book pages and pages of passages from that book. I read the print edition, and then I listened to the audio that's read by the author. It's a short book. The audio is less than 4 hours long, I think. Emily Temple over at LitHub looked at 58 different best of 2025 lists. All of them were American lists, except maybe The Guardian was the only one that wasn't an American list. But A Truce That Is Not Peace came up 10 different lists. So I'm not the only one who loved it. Miriam Toews, I've read almost everything that she's written because I love her style so much. In this memoir, it's quite recursive, so she keeps coming around, circling around the question, why write? She's circling around her emotions having to do with her father and sister. They both died by suicide. She articulates what is so amazing about human existence. Yeah, it's a stunning, stunning book. I've got other nonfiction at the tippy top of my best of Canadian 2025, including Salvage, Readings from the Wreck by Dionne Brand. Part of this book is based on a lecture that she gave, I think it was in 2019. I was there. It was in Edmonton, the Crystal lecture, and that was called An Autobiography of Reading. And it was published as a standalone by the University of Alberta Press. And she's expanded on that in Salvage. I saw her at the Vancouver Writers Festival in 2024 talking about Salvage, and her intellectual rigor regarding reading. I'm just so full of admiration. I enjoy Dionne Brand's novels very much. In this book, she is looking at how reading shapes a reader, especially someone like her, and like me, who reads so much. So Western literature, as she says, is colonial literature. The project of colonialism is embedded within European literature. She is looking for non-white or Black characters in the works of people like Jane Austen and William Thackeray, and looking at how these particular characters say something about the social environment that the author was in writing that novel. I feel like now that Dionne Brand has opened my eyes, I can see so much more in the novels that I read. This next book is actually a collection of writings by a diverse group of people, many of them Indigenous. Jody Wilson Raybould, who is a former member of Parliament here and also a member of Kwakwaka'wakw people, the Wiwakai Nation. And it was put together with Roshan Danesh. There are multiple narrators in the audio edition, and it's the history of this place that we now call Canada, especially focusing on the relationships between the Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of this land. Excellent. My top Canadian nonfiction is one that many, many people have also picked as a top book, and that is One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar el-Akkad. The audiobook is narrated by the author. It's less than 5 hours long. It is so powerful. Omar was born in Egypt. He grew up in Qatar, moved to Canada as a teenager, and now he lives in the US. His novels, American War and What Strange Paradise, are both excellent. This is his debut nonfiction, and it arose out of a tweet on October 25th, 2023, which is where this title comes from. It's a cry from the heart about genocide in Palestine. In LitHub, in their ultimate best books of the year, it was on 16 of those lists. I'm going to go from Gaza to Ghazals. I've got 3 books of poetry to tell you about. I couldn't pick between these 3. Dog and Moon by Kelly Shepard is a collection of ghazals that have such unique juxtapositions. This is another book that makes me see things differently, purely from the way different things are put together in here. These are drawn from fragments of dreams and bits of nature writing in his journals and childhood memories and all kinds of things brought together so brilliantly. And it is a book that I like to just pick up and flip open and be uplifted and surprised anew every time. Encrypted by Arlene Paré is sort of a memoir. It's definitely autobiographical. These poems all have to do with her grandson, who's an adult, living with her and her wife in their basement. And the grandson has a mental illness that makes it difficult for him to leave the house. So they worry about him. She worries about him, but also wants to give him his space. And once again, it is the care and respect of the author towards the subject that I just find makes me glad to be a human being. I'm always glad for books that do that to me. Yeah, so much love. And the third book, I know we have a copy, it's somewhere in the house. It's Midway by Kayla Zaga. She's another lesbian poet living here in Victoria. So does Arlene. This is a great place for poets. And the poems in here are autobiographical. A lot of them deal with grief and mourning. And Kayla has such a whimsical sense of humor. This makes these poems such a joy to read. Loved it. Now, this book was a finalist for the City of Victoria Poetry Prize, the DC Read Poetry Prize. And so was the next book, which is the picture book, What Makes a Bird by Megan Pomper. In it, there's an ungendered child who wanders through nature asking, what is it that makes a bird? Is it that they have feathers? Is it that they have wings? With each possible answer, more questions arise. If laying eggs makes a bird, what about turtles, snakes, or fish? If flying is the thing, are penguins still birds? The illustrations are gorgeous. There is a key at the back of the book to all of the birds that are included. And I love how it invites us to think about what makes us human and how do we categorize things. It is so thoughtful, and it actually shows us the process of critical thinking. It's aimed at readers aged 5 to 8. I recommend it for all ages. And this next book actually won the City of Victoria Children's Book Prize, and it's part of the Book Uncle trilogy. I read the last 2 books in this trilogy this year, and I'm putting them both together as best of 2025. So it was way back in 2016 that I read Book Uncle and Me, the first book, and then Birds on the Brain came out more recently, and the most recent one is the third book in the trilogy, The Sunshine Project. The author is Uma Krishnaswami, who was born in India and now lives here in Canada, actually in Victoria, city where I live. The books are about a trio of friends who live in a city in India, and each book focuses on one of the friends. There's Yasmin, Rini, and Anil. And one of the many things I love about this series, which is aimed at young readers from grade about 3 or 4 all the way up to grade 6. But again, excellent for adults too. The children are smart, they're caring, they're resourceful. They get assistance from adults to also work together because the problems that they're dealing with, the things that they see that need fixing, are big things. We're talking about climate change, government corruption, environmental degradation. Well, chunks of that fit within these larger major concerns for the world. These kids tackle problems and get things done, and the books are page turners with believable characters in them. Just a pure joy to read. And another middle grade book that is pure joy to read is Tig by Heather Smith. I listened to the audio. I talked about it in my Do You Read Canadian video, so that was pretty recent. There's a queer male couple in here who demonstrate unconditional love for a child and a dog who, by most people's standards, would be considered a bad dog. So it's a very heartwarming book about the unlovable. Yeah, it's great. I do have a top audiobook, and that is The River Has Roots by Amal el-Mohtar. She's an author of Lebanese descent, and she co-wrote a book that you might have heard of, This Is How You Lose the Time War. She wrote that with Max Gladstone. The audiobook is read by somebody else, but there is music performed on here by the author and her sister, and there's flute, harp, and vocals. I listened to this twice through. I loved it so much. It's not a long story. It's a novella that draws on British folklore and ballads. There's a queer romance between a human woman and a shape-shifting fairy being. The bond between sisters here is so important. The audiobook also has a bonus short story from a forthcoming collection. I haven't checked to see if that is out yet. Definitely want to read that too. But I've got another work of speculative fiction, Wild Life by Amanda Leduc. She's a writer with cerebral palsy, and many of the characters in this novel have disabilities of various kinds. The time span is broad. It starts in the early 1900s. It goes into the future. 2041, I think, is, how far ahead it goes. There's a religious group in here, the Church of the Wild, that has overarching theories of wellness, the superiority of mind over body. These correlate quite nicely with ideas about disability. So the founder of these religious ideas, Josiah, his character and the way his ideas proliferate from a lot of different viewpoints, it really reminded me of Olga Tokarczuk's The Books of Jacob. And another book that I thought of as I was reading this was Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, because one of the chapters is written as if it is a research paper on Josiah done 100 years after his birth or death, something like that. So, that the framing story in The Handmaid's Tale is like that. This is one that I read quite early this year, and it has really stuck with me. And now here is my top book of 2025, this slim novel by Suvankam Thamavongsa, Pick a Color. Suvankam was born to Laotian refugees in a Thai refugee camp, and her family came to Canada, just where she grew up. Her short story collection, How to Pronounce Knife, is my all-time favorite short story collection. And I think I was a little bit worried how I was going to feel about this novel. Why did I worry? I adore it. It's set over the course of one day in a nail salon. It could be in any city, any nail salon. We see life through the eyes of Ning, who is, I think she's in her 40s, 30s or 40s. She's the owner of the shop. And it's just, what goes on during the day in the shop. And while we do get to know a lot about her, there are also so many questions. I love how we're given so much white space of things to think about. So, for example, one of her employees had previously asked for an advance in pay, which Ning gave her, but then she hasn't shown up for work since. And Ning is wondering what's going on with her. She's concerned about her. And we also find out what some of the other workers there think about this person and her not showing up. That's just one tiny example. Ning was formerly a boxer. She's a tiny little woman. So that's also a very curious thing that as a reader you're wondering, but why? Why was she boxing? And I like books that make me wonder, that make me so wrapped up in a character, and also that make me really love a character. She lives alone and she's entirely happy with that solitude. It's very different from a lonely person. We see her connections with her customers, with her employees, and to me, this book was like a gift of another life that I feel like I've got a close glimpse into, if that makes sense. Yeah, my favorite. And that is all I've got for you today. So thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate hearing from you. So please say hi in the comments and let me know what is your favorite book of 2025. And bonus hearts if it's a Canadian book. Lots of love to you all. Happy reading, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye for now.